Hey, so I'm doing this update on the Mercury retrograde, the current Mercury retrograde cycle. Mercury is in Gemini, and you can see this Mercury retrograde. It actually started on June 18th, I believe was the day. What is that? June 17th, June 18th. And it goes until July 12th. I'm pretty sure that's the exact date. And 10, 11, 12, it moves direct. Now, of course, in the midst of this important retrograde cycle, we also have the solar eclipse that's happening on June 21st. June 21st. And so a lot going on here with this Mercury retrograde. Now, it's happening in the sign of Gemini. So this is a very powerful sign for this retrograde to happen. And I just want to show you, I also have this app, this solar system app, which is really cool. And you can see how from space, this is the way the solar system looks right now. You can see that the Earth is here. And again, this is on so this is on June 21st. You can see that the Earth, make this go up here. So we have the, you see the signs. We have Gemini here, and the Earth is here. Sometimes they have this so hard to move sometimes. Okay, so you see the moon. This is June 21st. This is where we have that solar eclipse with the moon in between the Earth and Sun. And then we have, as we go, you can watch the date change. This is June 22nd, June 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. And you see at that time how Mercury is in between the Earth and the Sun. Using this app, you can see that pretty clearly, right? And then we go to July 12th. By that time, again, if we swing this around, this is July 12th right here. We could see that now we're looking at the earlier stages of Gemini. And whereas it started to go retrograde on June 17th, which was right here. So this is a very interesting app. It's called Solar System Scope. People will probably ask me, it's called Solar System Scope. It's pretty cool. And it's nice to get that astronomical view instead of always looking at the, the flat chart. That's the way it looks in the sky. Is the Earth is here in the middle, Mercury is here, then it goes back, and then it starts to go forward again. So this Mercury in Gemini is very important for using the mind and to reflect on details. When Mercury goes retrograde, it slows down. It's very fast, like the speed of our intelligence, the speed of our intellect. That's really what Mercury is about. It shows the speed of the intellect and how that, how that intellect makes for an adjustment in the way we already think. So we have ideas about things, but then we need to adjust. And our ideas through Mercury, what true intelligence and understanding and comprehension refers to is actually the ability to understand things on many different levels. When someone is really intelligent, they understand things from many points of view. They're not just locked into one way of seeing it, which is actually an opinion. These are opinions. Opinions and intelligence often look very similar to each other, but they're not. In fact, one is kind of anathema to the other. It's like the death of intelligence is opinions. Now, again, we can have strong convictions and beliefs about things, and then, our ideas about it can sound like opinions. But what I mean by opinions are just when we believe something that we haven't really investigated enough, and then we just have a strong opinion about it, and then we argue about it and fight about the idea. That kind of thing, that's related to Mars, and it's very polarized, black and white, where we box subtle complex situations into black and white scenarios. And then we defend those positions with our opinions. That's completely different than what Mercury is doing. Whereas Mercury is making us truly intelligent, which means where we see things from many different points of view, where we're not just defending our opinions based on what we've been told or based on what we believe now. Because again, we believe things at different stages. Think of how many opinions you've had and how wrong they are. Think of the opinions you had last year about the nature of the world. Because I'll tell you one thing, as I've said many times since Rahu went through Gemini, our opinions and our perspective is changing so fast right now, we can't keep up with it. And the things that are really changing are our opinions. I see people just generating new opinions now constantly. Like I've seen people's opinions shift and change so drastically, even in the last month or so, since we've had all of the crazy things that have been happening in our world lately. We can't keep up with our changing opinions fast enough. Our paradigm's shifting so quickly. Our cognitive biases are colliding within ourselves so fast. Our own cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when we believe something and then we get faced with new situations that prove the way we've been seeing it is wrong. That's called a cognitive dissonance. Now we have to think of something else to say to maintain congruence. So we'll often, this is what makes people say crazy things that don't make any sense, because they're trying to maintain a consistent worldview. Because let's say they believe that this is the way things are, and then they're suddenly faced with something that proves that their whole way of seeing the world was wrong, especially if it's something big. They had this big investment in things. Like, again, what if we, for a whole life, believed that, we didn't believe in God, and we knew that there was no such thing as God, right? And then one day, we absolutely, saw God right in front of, like, that would be a great revelation, but we would fight with that. Now, that's a big one, but even on a smaller scale, right? This is why people believe things that aren't true, and they lie to themselves because they're trying to maintain a cognitive alliance, a congruence with their worldview. This is why people are so irrational. And you obviously, you see this in things like politics and worldviews and the views that people hold about certain things. And they'll deny provable science just to maintain their cognitive bias and to maintain congruence, especially if they've said these things a lot within their social group, because they'll lose a lot of status if they now admit, you know what, everything I thought before was wrong. It's very hard to do that. So they'll keep trying to adjust. Now, again, this is a real conundrum of Mars, but when we hang on to those false ideas, but Mercury is where we adjust. So so I'm talking about this a lot now because we're seeing so many things that are undermining our opinions and our biases, especially all of our the things that we believed and the opinions we had that were defending those beliefs even a few months ago are in question now. They're getting challenged, and Mercury is the thing that's good at navigating all of that. And instead of trading one fanatical belief and opinion for another, which we might tend to do, Mercury can then sit back and just look at all of that and say, but wait a minute, this is just another opinion. You had this opinion before and you were wrong. Maybe this opinion is also wrong. Maybe don't try to make up your mind so fast. See, this is the greatness of Mercury. Mercury is great because we're not always in a hurry to make our mind up so fast. Mercury is not in a hurry to make his mind up at all. The point of Mercury isn't to be right and to, now I have the right thing I can say to argue with somebody else about. I'm right. I win. I get to now take my right mind and my right ideas and inflict them on everybody and defend them and go out and find the things that I know are right and assert them. That's not what Mercury's about anyway. Mercury's like, I'm probably right about a lot of it, but I don't know everything. So I'm open to new information. So when Mercury's in Gemini, like we have now, That's great because Mercury's the ruler of Gemini. So the power of Gemini is to be flexible, to be intelligent, to enjoy gathering new information and to be open and to not be locked into some strong opinion. You know, when people have a lot of Gemini energy, they probably have a lot of ideas. They might even have a lot of strong beliefs and opinions about it, but they stick pretty close to what they know. And if they don't know something, they'll say, I don't know. But they'll probably have a lot of good information, but they will be very careful with the information and they'll explain it in the proper measure that's congruent with their understanding. They don't go too far. They don't say things that they're not sure of, that they don't already know, that they haven't already tested and figured out. And again, this is what Mercury is really good at. Mercury is really good at organizing the data correctly and then staying within the parameters of what we actually know and really learning it thoroughly, because there's so much that goes into getting a good answer. Like if you're a researcher, if you're researching things, again, which includes examining your own biases and in fact not even having a bias, at least not having a really strong bias, where your bias is just to figure out what's going on, not to try to convince yourself or win some point of view. So when Mercury is powerful, we don't have that bias. We're not rushing to get a conclusion that we can fight about and argue over so we can be right. That's not important to Mercury. Mercury enjoys the dialogue, enjoys the investigation, and enjoys conveying the information and even learning new things about it. Saying, here's what I think, what do you think? And then seeing what comes back. So this is great. This is a great lesson right now for, and in fact, Mercury is retrograde until July 12th, but then he's going to be in Gemini into August. So he's in Gemini until August 2nd. So between now and August 2nd is a great time to be adjusting your worldview and getting clear about the difference between opinions and defending your opinions and trying to win and looking to be intelligent and developing a greater comprehension of things that are, especially things that are complicated. And these days, and especially, also as it relates to data and words that people say, language, media, we're just so overwhelmed right now with so many competing ideas about what things really mean. And again, if our Mercury isn't that strong in our chart, or if it's compromised, or if Mars is really strong, or whatever it might be, we can be just really spinning out on a lot of opinions, and our opinions masquerading as factual ideas and on good thinking and intelligence. Intelligence is different than opinions. Again, you'll notice it's an opinion because you get angry about it. You get frustrated. You get mad. We don't get mad about ideas. Mercury doesn't get mad. Mercury isn't the angry one. If you're getting angry about your ideas, or you're defending yourself with ideas, again, realize the ideas you use to defend yourself are called opinions. Not like it's wrong. Sometimes you need to defend yourself with certain opinions, particularly the opinions based on things you've done. See, the power of our opinions, I used the word earlier, is in the power of our convictions. So the greatness of Mars type of opinions is it's the things that we've actually put into practice, and we know they're true and we know they're real. They become very deeply held convictions, and they, in our mind, become like opinions, like this is right, this is wrong. And that's an idea that's a very deeply entrenched idea. That's a firmly held conviction. On the level of the conviction, it's very powerful. And this is where Mars gives a lot of those convictions, because those things also compel us to action. They make us disciplined. They take things that could be complicated and they make them very simple. Do this thing because it's about action. This is the right thing to do. And I know that, and this is a firmly held conviction. But then if we take that, if we're going to talk about it with others, we need to diffuse all of the conviction, and rather than bring out all of the opinions about why we know it's right, and we know we're right, and we know this thing is right, because I do it and I know it's right, and I know it's right, and here's all these opinions to prove it to you that it's right. We need to get rid of that part of it and keep our deeply held convictions and discipline to ourselves, and then we bring out Mercury to talk about it. Mercury is the one we bring out to talk. Mercury should be the one we bring out to talk about things. Because what's right for us and our opinions and our convictions might not be right for someone else. Even if it is right for someone else and we know it's right, and we know they should be doing this thing that we know is right. Again, this is all Mars thinking. It sounds like they're thoughts, but they're not. They're just opinions. And I know it's right for you to do yoga. I know you should be doing yoga. You should be doing these things. You shouldn't be eating meat. You should be doing yoga. You should be doing breathing exercises. And the reason you're weak is because you're not doing what I know is right. Again, that might be that might all be true. But you can hear how that's an opinion. Mercury comes out and explains the thing. See, Mercury is the communicator. He's communicating. And he's taking that thing that I might know is right, and I might know it's right for everybody. It would be better if someone did it, and I know this is true. But if I say it like that, it's not going to be effective. Because what Mars does is keeps the strength for me. It makes me strong. If I want to bridge the gap with someone else and explain the thing that's made me strong, you need Mercury. Mercury is the speaker. He's the communicator. Mercury is bridging the gap between my truthful experience and someone else's, because they haven't lived that experience. And if I want my experience to be meaningful to them, not just something that makes me right and them wrong, which is Mars, even if we don't intend it that way, that's how it comes out. That's why Mercury is the speaker. He's the one who should be speaking. When Mars is speaking, it's a conflict. It's a confrontation. And someone is then getting backed into a corner. You're backing them into a corner with your words. You're doing that. When Mercury is speaking, there's curiosity, there's fun, there's humor, there's enjoyment. So this is a great opportunity now with Mercury in Gemini until early August, and particularly with this retrograde cycle that we have until July 12th, especially that he's in Gemini, to really work on not just our speaking, which is the active quality of Mercury, but more importantly, our listening. When Mercury goes retrograde, it goes backwards, it backs up, and the feminine quality of communication is listening. There's inner and outer experiences. Again, Mercury is one of the easiest to understand because he's the speaker. And the external quality of communication is speaking, is talking, like I'm doing right now. But what we say is a product of what we've learned, what we've taken in. The internal feminine reflective quality of communication is listening. Not just about what I say, it's also what you say. If we're going to have communication, if I'm just going to say stuff to you, that's not communication. That's just a lecture. We all love being lectured, don't we? Or someone is just talking at us. The first thing we say is, you don't even know me. You don't know what my experience is. You're just lecturing me. You're not listening. So when we see someone's not listening, we don't listen to them. So again, with Mercury and in this retrograde period, especially between now and July 12th, it's a great time to listen. Listen to others, but just as important is listen to yourself. Reflect on your ideas and reflect on your opinions, especially now they've been spinning out like crazy for the last few months with all the things that have been happening. And reflect on, like, what have I been saying? Like, have I embarrassed myself with some of the things that I've said? and we can tend to embarrass ourselves at times, and particularly when Mercury is combust. And I'll bring the screen up again. The combustion, when planets are combust, it's when they're the closest to the Earth. And you can see when the planets go retrograde. So this is where it is now. You could see here on June 17th, you could see that the angle at which Mercury goes retrograde. It's when it's there. And then it stops going retrograde when it's at about the same point, when it's about over here. Yeah, that's July 12th. You see how it's right at the edge. But at its right about here, that's when it's closest to the Earth. Right about there, that would be like around the June 23rd. Or no, what was it? Yeah, June 30th, rather, excuse me. Around June 30th, it's exactly closest to the Earth. That's when it's the most combust. But you can see the entire transit of Mercury retrograde. When Mercury goes retrograde and Venus goes retrograde, because of course Venus is also retrograde now. I should have said it. This is the way the planets are. By the way, so is Saturn is also retrograde. Saturn and Jupiter, they are here. Sorry, this is Jupiter and Saturn is out here. The scaling on this app is not what I would like, but these planets are all closest to the Earth when they're retrograde. I'd like to get the scaling on this better, but you can see how with Mercury and Venus, you can see how they're inside the Earth's orbit. See how close they are? They're both retrograde. Mercury's close to the Earth. Venus is close to the Earth. And then if you go out, Jupiter's also close to the Earth, because Jupiter could be all the way over on this side. And when we get all the way over here, when the Earth is all the way around here, Jupiter will be combust. And the same is true with Saturn. Saturn is also close to the Earth. So all those planets are retrograde right now. And again, when they're retrograde, they're closer to the Earth than at any other time. So again, when planets are close to the Earth, then they become very prominent. And this is why the retrograde planet, it appears to move backwards, but it becomes very powerful internal. But the inner planets, Mercury and Venus, when they're retrograde, they're also combust, which means their energy is coming through the sun. So you can see the sun is actually purifying Mercury here because he's passing right in between the sun and the Earth. So the sun is purifying Mercury because Mercury is in between the sun and the Earth, just like it's purifying Venus. So this is why we've also seen a lot of purification around our relationships. A lot of scrutiny shined on the nature of how we relate, and really seeing that in full display. Really seeing how we've been, how we relate to others. It's been a big issue. It's been a big theme for the last month or so, month and a half or so, since Venus went retrograde was in early I think it was the middle of May. I don't remember now. Sorry. But so a lot of these energies are getting purified right now, and this Mercury retrograde in Gemini, a lot of purification of your ideas, of your speech, of the things you communicate, the things you say, the ideas that you believe and that you explain and that you say, and really noticing how you can damage your own, let's say, reputation, but your own standing in your community or with your friends. Mercury has a lot to do with friends and acquaintances and people that we want to surround ourselves with, that we want to enjoy life with. We're judged a lot by about how our ideas, like, what's the stuff this guy's saying? Like, is he saying a bunch of crazy stuff all the time? If you question what he says, is he like get all crazy with me, or he or she or whatever? Do they just want to hear themselves talk all the time, and they always think they're right and they're just full of opinions? Or do they not, do they think they're right about things that they haven't researched very well, but they're always trying to sort of tell everybody what to think or what to do or whatever? reflect on how your words come across to people and how people's words come across to you. We're experiencing this a lot now, and it's time to make great progress in that regard. So the retrograde cycle until July 9th, until July 12th is really important for reflecting on our ideas, listening clearly, evaluating our own opinions and our own kind of scattered mind, not being so quick to rush to an opinion. Instead, be open and curious. Again, certainly not try to just win in some kind of debate or argument with people. Understand that the thing that bridges your convictions with other people's life, if you really want to help people, it's not going to be by lecturing them or telling them what they're doing wrong. It's going to be by taking those things that you know and figuring out a way to explain them so that other people also can learn, so other people can also benefit from your knowledge and experience. Again, this is what Mercury and Venus do. Venus does it because we care enough, because we want the things that are beautiful to us to also be beautiful to them. But Mercury is the one that really does it. Mercury is the one that gives the skill to be able to do it. And the compassion and the cleverness and the sensitivity to really listen and really be curious. Like, what do you think about that? Why do you think that? Well, how do you think that works? And then you listen. You know, I learn something from everybody I ask anything to. Anytime I'm always, I'm not always curious about everything, but anytime I'm trying to find something out, even if I don't necessarily think it's right or whatever, I'm curious to know why they thought that. How did they get to that answer? Even if I know the answer is wrong. Even if I know it's wrong. I want to know why they said it, why they think it was right, and what's their thinking process behind it. Because that's going to tell me as much or more than me just saying, oh, that's wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. First of all, it's not going to help them, because if you just tell somebody something, even if you're right and you correct them, what you're doing, though, is you're just correcting something on the surface. Again, this is also part of pulling things out from the roots. I want to know what someone is thinking and what their thinking process is. The only way to know that is to listen and ask them and genuinely care. Personally, I have a strong Mercury, so I genuinely am curious about why people are saying things. But then that allows me to go, okay, here's where this is the thing. It's right, but it's not quite right. You're almost there 100%. Particularly because I have to teach a lot of students. And even when they get to the answer that's correct, I want to know how they got there. Because I want to see, okay, yeah, that's right, but because I want to help them understand it as best as I can and also be able to explain it better. Because again, everything in life, especially if you're doing if you're trying to learn astrology or you're trying to especially do readings or any kind of thing like this, you don't just need data. Data is the least important part. The easiest thing that every monkey can do is identify, oh, Mercury rules this, Mercury is that. It's exalted here, it's debilitated here, good, bad, and not be able to really interpret any of it. And this is what most students do. They just have a lot of data that they've compiled, and to them that looks like knowledge that they could use somehow. They can't. It's almost useless. It's just identifying a bunch of stuff. It's like I'm sitting in a room. There's the clock, there's the poster, it's hanging this way, it has these colors on it, and I could just go around and identify everything. It doesn't change or allow me a greater understanding of anything. So this is the whole wisdom of Mercury. This is how Mercury is a divine magical force. In many ways, one of the most magical forces. They're all magical, of course. But for living a life on Earth, Mercury is the Bhadra yoga planet. Bhadra means blessed. To be able to understand what's happening on Earth. again, especially dealing with people and why they say the things they say and how to communicate with them and how to communicate without screwing it up. And we try to say something, but then it comes out wrong, and now people hate us, and like it didn't come out right, and now I just stepped in it, and I don't know how I got here now. Now all of a sudden I've just made a mess. So Mercury is so important in that regard. So ponder these things now, especially with humor, flexibility, curiosity, lightness, lightheartedness, especially with all the heaviness that's happening in the world. Breathe, relax, take a breath, listen, enjoy it. Look at Lord Krishna. He's always smiling. All the gods are smiling. That little smile is Mercury. It's that smile of like, okay, it's not so serious. So we'll leave it at that. And I hope this was helpful.